I remember what it's like, and you'll learn, Jarrett, when you launch what the you're launching. Dude, there's a time where you put your heart and soul into something and no one buys your. I will sit there forever and almost seriously PTSD with launching something and the torture of it. Hey everybody, welcome to the Jeremy Redman shows you how to do TaskMagic. Today we've got an interview coming right after this bumper. It's with Jarrett from AppSumo. He was a senior dev person there, development person, who brought us on. We had met originally met like 3 years ago, maybe. Straight up baller there, connected us with everyone there from Noah to everyone in between. And I'm sure we gave everyone there the time of their life because, as you can tell in this interview, we had quite the campaign. So we go from the beginning of that, like launching an LTD. A lot of this stuff is applicable to anyone building a product for the first time and then launching it and getting your first paying customers. We'll go into some other detailed videos into how exactly you get your first 10 customers if you don't launch on an LTD site like AppSumo. But if you stick around until the end, we actually release what our numbers are and what time frame we did that. So we answered all the questions in our community posts here on YouTube. So make sure you engage when I mention we have an interview with coming up with someone. Yeah. We'll post it in the community tab on YouTube and put your questions because we answer the majority of them, or we did in this one. So you can skip to the end. Don't skip to the end. Just look at this again. Please like this video. Please thumb up right now before the interview starts. Thumb it up. Subscribe if you haven't already, if you like to save time with automations, because that's what we're doing here. We go into some money-making tips in this interview as well, because that's one of the questions. We know you guys are curious about that. So give us a thumb, give us a subscribe, hit the bell so new videos that are uploaded, you get alerted to. If you do that, that's the only way we can spread the awareness about how automations can help everyone, both personally and professionally. Wouldn't everyone like a little more time with their family or with their friends or not talking to their boss? Anyway, we'll make some videos, but check this interview out. Is this legit or what?
It's legit. You got my picture of the mountains beat behind me.
Yeah, dude, that's weak. That's like your wife bought that at Kohl's and just like threw it by and goes, Jarrett, those white walls are just killing your videos.
That might not be that far from what actually happened.
Yeah, I know. You're still on your damn Android phone. If it wasn't for your wife, you wouldn't even know what blue text messages look like.
Hey, it keeps me out of group chats with all the iPhone users, so no
dude,
complaint.
I'm still working on this setup to where like I don't have your picture on my, so I'll show you a little bit of it. Do you see?
Yeah.
So like for me, I don't have that stuff like up
You're
there
just
yet.
looking into a lens, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking into like a lens with a huge screen on it, hoping to have the person there, like, because it's like a teleprompter setup with there's nothing on it though. So you're like, you can barely see that. But I know when I have a guest on, because I just used this for the first time yesterday. So I know that if I look down here, it looks weird, but that's where you're at. And it looks weird for you, I'm sure. But if I look like this and I talk like this, it looks to you as though I'm looking at you. Right on. Yeah. So that's great. But for like 35 minutes of talking to someone and I'm doing this with like a smile,
And you can't read body language. They could be flipping you off and you don't even know what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. So part of it is just like, I don't give a like, I'll get your face up there eventually, but I was running late, so sorry. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Keeping busy.
How is your... Wait, by the way, do you just have the one kid?
Yeah, just one.
Oh, okay. And you just wanted to stop at one?
Not initially, but that's where we're at now,
yeah. Yeah. I feel like because we were Holly wanted it more than anything in the world. And I was like, yeah, I was always game for kids. And then, like, you almost start to like feel like, oh, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And then, like, you're like, dang it, man. Like, dude, if I could just get one in, you know what I mean? Like, one in, like, everything's working. You know, I just want to make sure everything on her side's okay, everything on my side's okay. And it's like I've never felt like such a sigh of relief of like to just have the one and be like, I have that human experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I have a kid, I did it. It's like cool. And then I don't know if you would give me this advice, but a buddy of mine gave me the piece of advice. He's got 3 kids. He goes, just have one. Just have one. Have the experience. One kid is easy. It's one schedule. It's one the time you start to juggle. It's like so I'm thinking like maybe and you can it's probably no less complicated than having a dog, right? One kid.
I mean, we're kind of getting to the point now where we're running around with like sports and
Mhm.
gymnastics, and she just started tumbling. So she's doing like 5 or 6 different things, and it's a lot. And luckily, I have my wife.
Yeah.
Like she, stays home. She helps, shuttle a kid around, whatever. Like if we had more than one or like three, like I don't
Yeah.
know how I'd get any work done. I'd be driving minivans all over the city.
Do you
Um,
drive a minivan by the way?
no, we don't have a minivan. We
Oh,
have
okay.
an Atlas, Volkswagen Atlas. I drive a Tacoma,
Oh,
Tacoma guy.
a Tacoma. You're a truck guy.
I've owned like every type of car imaginable, and I'm just in a truck phase right now. I live in Texas, so
Oh,
it's a given.
yeah, yeah, you have to have a truck, a gun or two, right? And some land, you know. I'm not opposed to any of those, by the way. Like I absolutely think all those things are great if you like those things.
Mhm.
So not opposed, but just wanted to pick your brain on like having the one kid. I'm still weirded out at this point, but like I had I don't know if you know the company Yak, like
Uh,
the async
Sounds
messaging app.
familiar. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I've
it
heard of
launched a little while
it.
ago, raised like
Yeah.
10 million or whatever.
Mhm.
And the founder's a buddy of mine, Justin. He was on the show, and he was like, entrepreneurs make the best dads, moms, parents, you know.
Why
And you're
though?
like, because like if you were to my philosophy was, what do they say like first time parents? They say, you're not gonna get any sleep. All right, check.
Yeah.
Motherfucker, like checkmate. Like I don't get any sleep. Oh, dude, it's like nonstop crying. Yeah, my wife has to deal with my crying for no reason, like all the time. Okay, so like there's that. You think like it should be a what, and you're just like, don't kill the thing early on. Like feed it, let it sleep when it sleeps, and you're like, just you sleep when it sleeps. And it's like, yeah, and an entrepreneur also has the burden of the business doesn't go away, but you have the ultimate, you do have flexibility,
Yeah.
right? Where you're like, I can be up at 2 a.m. when she's up, and I can go to sleep 2 hours in the afternoon, right? So you're like, I can do those things. So like the flexibility helps. And just the demands of it, I feel, right? Like the uncertainty of everything. You're like,
Yeah.
I deal with uncertainty and risk and
Right.
like
Can't handle
juggling
that.
100 things.
Yeah. Some people like need to stay in their lane, and anything that deviates from like what they were expecting, they just freak out. So I would agree. Entrepreneurs like they
Yeah.
can roll punches and figure it out.
Yeah. So you're not currently an entrepreneur, but you're a leader at AppSumo. Yes.
Correct. Correct. I got
Would you
a few
describe?
things going on in the background, but
Do you?
nothing. Yeah, a few things in the works. I don't want to talk about it publicly, but I got
Whoa. Not
got some
public.
stuff.
Okay. Well,
It's
we'll
just
have you
not
come
far
back.
enough along to even like speak words
Okay.
about it. Like I don't want to jinx anything.
Would you? And our relationship goes back, and we'll dive into that. And we also have some poll questions, by the way, on our YouTube community.
Oh,
Because I was like,
nice.
I'm bringing someone on from AppSumo, so we'll go over those. I haven't even seen them, but we'll navigate over to it. But do you think when you launch what you're launching, do you think you will launch it on AppSumo?
No, it's not a
Mm.
product. It's not a
Oh,
tool.
okay.
Yeah.
Is it? Can you say anything about it or no?
I'm thinking about utilizing the skills that I've built in my career to help
Okay.
certain companies with what I see a lot of them struggling with.
That's a good insight. So like a consultancy kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
still
like that.
playing around with it,
You do
but
have a good point. You do have like a good vantage point, I feel.
I mean, I talk to usually like a dozen founders or product managers or marketing managers a week about products, and have worked with over 400 at this point, I would say, on like a launch on AppSumo.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've heard it all, and I feel like I've seen a lot of common themes from all these conversations I've had.
And that's what I want to dive into. Like kind of maybe our story and how you ushered us into AppSumo and a lot of because we've gained a lot of people. We had like over 4,000 people buy this thing like on AppSumo. And I want to go over like some of the process of like
Yeah,
doing it and like signing up for it and doing all this kind of stuff because you don't really see a lot of content on it or it's too like manicured, but like there's a real story behind how we did it, what we did with your help, and um, how we made it so successful because it was one of the most successful campaigns in AppSumo history, right?
yeah. I mean, yeah, it was one of the best of the year, and like even in the top all time, top of a short list.
Top all time. Can we say almost $1 million? Can we say that?
I mean, yeah, in gross revenue, it was
Yeah.
not far, which was
You yeah.
awesome to see.
You don't
I
have to
think
say
we
the
both had
exact
high
number, I guess.
expectations. Yeah, I don't want to give the exact number, but we both had high
Yeah.
expectations. But I think just getting to that level
I,
was, I know for me,
yeah,
beyond
I
what I
will
was.
say this. With the number I know of, and I swear you can't really get it, but like we had so many people like miss the AppSumo deal or whatever. So like we go, okay, for a limited time, we were getting so many questions about it. So we're like, fine, we'll just do one tier, we'll throw it on our site and you can do it. And we would still get questions like, "Oh, I can't." And it's like, "No, I'm not doing tiers again. I'm not doing these things again." Not to be like frustrated, but like we made this page where I was like, "There's no refund, no nothing. Like you know what you want. Like this has been for 2 months on AppSumo, and just to placate, like and make it easy, so we don't have to answer. We were getting d- dozens a week of response, like, "Hey, I missed this deal. I missed this deal. I missed this deal." And you're like, what do you do? Come across as like, oh, dude, you're done. Nope, sorry. Versus going, and then you kind of like win them over if you're like, all right, fine, we'll do the top tier. Like, and that's all we'll do. If you can't afford it, that's fine. But like, here you go. So I feel like with everything combined, and even then you can't gauge if someone has come from AppSumo exactly. And like,
Hmm.
unless they bring it up or whatever. Cause like we've gotten a bunch of sales from like directly from YouTube as well, like because that was our only marketing channel
Yep.
after our AppSumo launch.
Hmm.
So like with that in like a 3 month period, we surpassed like well over 1 million gross.
That's
So
awesome.
like it was, but a big catalyst of that was AppSumo and you bringing us on. There was
Mhm.
some torment, right? There was some working out some kinks. Everything's not perfect, but to start from the very beginning, you, me and you connected like 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, it was at least like two and a half. Was our
Two, two
first
and a
chat. It
half.
was for a different product. It was.
Yeah, it was for our V1 builder, our app
Yeah.
builder.
Yep.
Yeah. What's funny, dude, is like so many people have one. Here's a funny transition. Like when we launched on AppSumo, it was so many people were like, "Well, what's this V1 app?" Like almost, it's some of the weirdest thing because you're
They do
like,
their research, find everything out about
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah, right. And if you dig enough, you'll find that like I have over a year's worth of videos of building these products and doing these things. And
Hmm.
I'm learning there's a heavy handed distrust with like people launching LTDs in this ecosystem, and we'll unpack little about that later about how some of these people are trying to fill the holes in their hearts. But like, and trust me, and I'm trying to fill it for you. I'm trying to fill it. So uh there's this lack of like follow through. So they look at this, some people might look at this and go, oh, they're like on 2 products and they're like shift. It's like, well, what are your intentions with my daughter? You know what I mean? It's like that kind of, and it's like, whoa, one, you don't have to buy this. Two, it's like, why do you feel this way about this stuff? Like, let me hear you out. It's a very on edge community a bit, but like at the same time, I only park those into like this 20% camp where like 75 to 80% of the people like on AppSumo in the community are wonderful, loving human beings who want like deals on software.
And you almost never hear about them. They just come in, they purchase, they figure it out on their own, they love it, and they might post a review, and that's about it, and you never hear from those
Yeah,
ones.
it's the funniest thing too because it's like those are it's always like the squeaky wheels get the grease, you know?
Yeah.
Like you always kind of have that mentality. And but uh, uh so we've met 2.5 years ago.
I actually
I
just looked at
reached out.
it. It was November 4th, 2020. I checked my calendar. That was
I told you
very
it was
resonant.
3 years.
Yeah.
I
3
said it
years.
was 3 years. Do you remember how you found us?
I don't remember. I could probably find out. Do you
I think it
remember?
was because we launched the V1 builder on Product Hunt. And like
Okay.
we were like product of the day or something,
That
or
makes
product of the
sense.
week or something like that. And ever since then, I've had this in my mind, right? About like doing a launch on AppSumo because of the large community and the large gathering and the large followers that it has that you've worked so hard to get. So I guess starting there, and we kind of like ushered through, and while having our V1 builder, we launched an automation product that I thought would be better suited for the community. And we wanted to do that more anyway. Like the entire business was going in the automation direction and the AI direction
Mhm.
versus just like builders are completely commoditized. So I'm like, cool, the product's there if you want it. And we're relaunching that as well. But I reached out to you and in like
Yeah,
December,
that's about right.
and was like, hey, we got this new product. Well, kind of product, but like we're making some sales. We've got some initial traction. And I think it would help to do a AppSumo launch.
Yeah, and I remember that pretty vividly because I remember it had been, 2 years since we talked. And I
Yeah.
remember you coming into that conversation like so fired up to like talk to me again, and you're like talking about, hey, we're working on this product, and I was actually pretty fired up about it too because we had worked with quite a few tools already that did really well, like that automated workflows, certain tasks, things like that, like Zapier alternatives. I had never seen something that could actually help people like create and think of flows that they can even automate. And I think that's the
Yeah. Yeah.
struggle.
Yeah.
Most people, like, they don't even know how to use a tool. They're like, "Ooh, this looks cool. I don't even know like how to apply it to my business, my workflow." It's like that's what the tool does. Like, just work, and it like
Yeah. Yeah.
records what you're doing. It's like, here, do this. You can automate this. So I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
That is cool, and we just posted like an update to that to make the to train your AI agent. Like, and I think that's a really cool update. So everyone who hasn't checked that out, check out that latest video. I'll try to link it in the description here. Um, so yeah, and I'll never forget this because like Kyle and I were like talking back and forth and back and forth and back and forth about it. And I think we were like, or initially you go, yeah, we've got some spots in late January. And I'm like, all right, let's hit it. Let's get it. All right. Well, but before locking it in. And Kyle was like in the middle of doing something. And we had like a bunch of previous customers with
Yeah.
tens of thousands of MRR before AppSumo. And with like just in beta, I guess you might call it,
Hmm.
not an official mass marketed launch. And we were just kind of like gearing up for that. Like, because we knew with AppSumo, you can bring in hundreds on the low side, horrible campaign. It's hundreds. You told me that a bad campaign is under 1,000 for a select, right?
I wouldn't say bad. I think if we're doing less than 500, it wouldn't make sense to run a select campaign just with our hard costs and like the time and resources that go into building out these things and
Yeah,
promoting them. So it's kind of like the
yeah,
minimum threshold. Not to say that there's never been a launch that did under that,
yeah,
but like, yeah, we want to see at least 1,000 for it to be
yeah.
worthwhile.
So that's what we knew, which is So
Yeah.
many people, we're thinking, all right, we're going to be greater than the average, right? Which turns out to be way more than true. So, and we knew that going in, and I think it starts with that belief in like your product and how current customers are feeling about it. And what was funny though is we were like, all right, we could do late January, and then it became like late February, and it was like you emailed us going like, hey, I've got some slots in March, and I'm like, hey, Kyle, how are we? And he was like, I'm busy, man. Don't bother me. And we're because we knew we needed to get it to a level that it could handle not like 2 or 3 customers a day, which what we were getting, or 10 someday, like 1 to 10 a day, but like an influx of hundreds or 50 to 100 to 200 a day, which is what we were getting during the campaign.
Hmm.
Sometimes hundreds in a day. Like I think at one day we had like 300 people come in one day.
Yeah. There's a
So,
few days like that, multiple hundreds.
yeah. And for me, I was like, I knew that would do it because I knew how great the product is and how great the product potential was. Because again, the way I approached it was this is a lifetime deal. So these people are going to like, it's an investment. So as long as we got the copy down, the initial product experience down, and then helped people, so like making sure we had the right videos or help articles, or we were there and present. I wanted to make sure we got everything going, and it became where you were like, "Hey, we got some dates in February," and it's like, can't lock it in, and then some dates in March, and then at one point you gave up on us, and you were you were like, "You, Jeremy." No, you didn't say that, but you
No,
said what did you say? You said you'll get back to me or what? You knew I would get back to you when we were ready or whatever.
I knew you weren't blowing steam. I knew you wanted to launch and you didn't feel
Yeah.
like you were quite ready. And I agreed. Like I didn't want to push it prematurely because I knew the potential. So I just wanted to make sure I was keeping the communication channels open and warm, not letting it go for 3 months without reaching out. So, and you did, and you came and you're like, hey, I think we're a good spot. Yeah.
Yeah. It worked as a, I don't know. I feel like we were ready, but ready for, like, normally it's like, cool, 100 users a day are using this. And when we initially launched, we were like, holy, you're getting like 100, you're getting 100 more customers per day, right? So at the end of it, Jarrett, we had like 3,000 daily users, dailies, which brings its own set of troubles and problems, right?
Sure.
So like you can say, "Oh, a product isn't ready." And you're like, "No, no, no. A product with 100 users is different than a product with 1,000 users per day." And you don't know how much a product will has that flexibility until you get 1,000 users.
Yeah. Talk about a
So,
stress test.
I yes, that's again, it was a if you ask Kyle, it was a forcing function for Kyle to get his together.
And
Like,
stuff like
and the
broke.
engineering
Didn't
team
we
anyway.
break some stuff? And then you guys like were really good about fixing it on the fly. And I think the
That's what
community
was
saw
great.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what I think eventually won the entire community over, which which spoke to like maybe previous launches on AppSumo because I don't know, right? I didn't know much about. I knew credit to you. I knew Jarrett. I kind of knew AppSumo, but I hadn't really purchased it. I purchased like 1 or 2 things maybe, and then I just kinda, like, forgot about him, which turns out that's a trend. But you're like, "Okay, cool." So, I knew Jarrett, and I knew we wanted to, like, cut through noise, and how do we do that? Um, but yeah, like, knowing you and knowing you were amazing and great, I knew you had to surround yourself with other amazing, great people, and it turns out everyone at AppSumo was amazing and great, and they had to deal with me. So, like, that's gotta be rough. Like, I can't imagine to all the AppSumo employees out there. We did it.
We did it.
We
Made it
did.
happen. Made it
All's
through
well that ends
alive.
well.
Yeah.
Made it through alive, yeah.
No,
So,
it's
it's
quite a
funny,
journey.
quite a journey. From your side, seeing us have such a successful campaign, um, where do you think the pros and cons were for us, like, looking at it?
As far as the launch,
Yeah, as
pros
far
and
as like
cons.
launching and then growing through the launch.
Yeah, I think the pros are pretty obvious, right? Like the amount of revenue that you guys were able to generate, the amount of, overall awareness about the product and the customer acquisition. You guys were already getting traction before, but I
Yeah.
think you'd agree that it just accelerated things and probably tapped
Yeah.
into some community members and customers and markets that maybe you hadn't tapped into yet. And maybe you would have got there at some point, but we just kind of got you there quicker. So I think
Yeah,
the
I think
positive,
that
yeah, go ahead.
no, well, I think that's the reason why we wanted to do it. Like, because so we just tried to like educate as many people coming into using our product as possible,
Mhm.
which was we did this like obviously it's you're getting a deal on software. We're giving you a lifetime price and in a lot of instances very inexpensive. And like we don't get all this. We all have partners, you have partners. We're splitting stuff. Like then you have affiliates, we have affiliates. We have a current group of people who if we push to AppSumo, like we get the traction and the reviews and the everything that comes with it, the feedback and like the loops and testing out the API that we had to build just for AppSumo. Like all of these things and you kind of like step back and you're like we just did like so much work for what? And like there's a question mark. And do you remember what you told me why you launch on AppSumo? Do you remember?
I don't know exactly what I said, but it probably was trying to get you guys to think about the bigger picture in the long term and
Yeah, it was
how
the
we got there so
community.
long. Community,
It
yeah.
was like your early users,
Yep.
right? Like it is getting feedback and growing to a product that like thousands of customers in our case like love. So I went into it with that mentality with we're going to get feedback, right? What I the demon side of it was I thought that would be fine. Like I thought like the 60-day money back is like risk free. Like I why wouldn't anyone just go, ah, wasn't for me, like refund. Some people there's some like vitriol and hate behind it for some reason. And I think and I don't know what that is. And I wanted to ask you like what like I remember like one question like people just want to on something. And it's a hard thing to bring up but it's also a part of doing this where you can see now that like we're like people were judging us for like even being in on this like oh are they all in or are they doing V1 or are they doing it's like same company different product. How
Mhm.
would you mention people how would you mention to like founders wanting to like launch on AppSumo or launching an LTD to like deal with some of that cynicism and where do you think that comes from?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think you just have to kind of come in prepared, right? You're going to get feedback that looks, all different ways, right? It's going to be positive, it's going to be negative. Some people are just angry. But I think the good thing is, as a whole, the community is awesome, and you are getting great constructive feedback, criticism, even. I think it's kind of few that are just coming in with just, vitriol, like you said. I mean, you can look at anywhere like Disneyland has negative reviews, 1-star reviews, people hate it.
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere is going to hate what you're doing, no matter what you're doing. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to not miss that and not forget about like all the people that are loving the tool and maybe you're just not hearing from them. So,
Yeah.
and we're here to support. Like we want to help partners navigate through it, and we want to help navigate difficult conversations and be kind of in the loop when there are certain customers that are maybe being a little aggressive. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think we communicated well and kind of figured out each issue as it came.
I really do agree with that. Like, I think from a partner perspective, like you guys really brought it. And I know I probably I can tell you right now it's not easy to deal with me. Like as people would probably imagine if they watched more than 2 or 3 of the videos on YouTube that I've made. So it's 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 rough. But again, I think if you have the right approach to launching on this, it's a very good exercise in can your product scale? Like this 1 second, and I will poop on that 20% of people, 100%. Except I don't really call people out by name. It's just like one of my philosophies.
Hmm.
But that does exist. And you're right. I think that does exist with Disneyland. Except if Disneyland gave you a 60-day money back guarantee, zero risk, I'm not leaving a bad review on something where I could be like, "Oh, it's not for me." I just wouldn't do that, and that was one of my biggest pet peeves on earth. I think I do believe a 60-day money back guarantee, like, enables people to just take advantage of a tool for a period to solve an issue for a period and just, like, refund it and do the next thing. Like, and you said, and I don't know what you can speak on this, is like, how do you think about a 60-day, like, cuz I like a 14-day, I like even a 30-day. Does 60-day feel excessive?
It's been like that as long as I can remember, and I think it's
Mm.
intentionally kind of probably longer term than most would need to evaluate a product, and it's to get people to not overthink it, right? Like you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
purchase
yeah.
it now, you might not have time to try it out over the next few weeks. Great, we give you 60 days. Like there's really no reason once you see it, if you think you see value in it, like don't run the risk of forgetting about it and missing it. Like just buy it now, and you have 2 months to test it. So that's the idea is like to lower that barrier and get people to just pull the trigger. It's like you have time to
Yeah,
evaluate. And
yeah,
having been doing this for so long, AppSumo's been around 13 years. I've been here over 4 years. I haven't really had partners come back after their launch and be like, hey man, like we got so many refunds of people that were like using it heavy during 60 days and they refunded. It's like usually the
yeah,
people that are using that heavy, like they're getting value from it and they're enjoying it. So why would they refund? Like most of the refunds, as you could
yeah,
probably see if you go check records, like people buy it, maybe they don't test it out in, 6 weeks and they're like, I haven't used it in this long. I probably don't do it. They'll refund without doing anything, or they'll
yeah.
buy, poke around for 5 minutes and then refund for whatever reason. Like it's more common than somebody using it for 2 months and then wasting all that time and refunding. It depends on the tool also.
It does. And like where you can actually scrape a bunch of with our tool and be
Mhm.
done, like it has those one-off use cases. Full disclosure, that definitely has happened, and we can tell because
Mhm.
we see it. You're like, "Oh, this person has run 18 hours on this one task, and we see it was successful." And then they're like, 2 weeks later, it's, "Ah, they had that one thing." Dude, you wanna know what's hilarious? Kyle has done it. I'm calling out Kyle right now. Like,
Wow.
he's like, "Oh, yeah, cool. I'm gonna get this." He had one task, and then it was like, "Oh, I just refunded it to do the next one." And I go, "What are you?" I don't I don't love it. I don't love that mentality at all because that mentality is like a false step for a founder. Like, on one, because it's funny, man. As a founder and a builder and a product maker, I don't know about other founders that like throw on here. Like, I'm really trying to get to the bottom of that hole in the heart mentality, right? Like, why I took so much unnecessary vitriol. Like, people can go back and on our page and look at it. Like, it's fine. It's totally fine. Like, we have like 900, almost 1,000 questions on there, all answered initially, because I gave a right?
Yeah.
And it's weird when they're like asking for everything but your social security number. And you're like, all right, I'll play this game. I'll play this. It's very interesting. Like, what is the reason behind this? And I would answer it fully, honestly. And again, it's for everyone to see because it's all transparent. Like, we've been building this forever. And you're like, to see that it is truly demoralizing for the person who built it if that person who built it gives it right, where it's like, "Oh, okay, there was no real good feedback," right? Like, there was nothing, and we saw that you used it, so it's like, can we at least get the feedback of what you were doing with it or why you did this? And that is hard to stomach because that's the other side of it, where you might get 4,000 sales, right? But you're gonna get 2,000 refunds or whatever it is. That's not our exact numbers, but, like, you get 3,700 refunds or whatever. You know? So it's funny, like, have you heard from partners, honestly, like, that have had, like, somewhat of a bad experience or an experience that didn't match their expectations, and how do you handle that, like, when you have recruited them and you have put them on this platform? Does it feel
Yeah.
like do you wear that at all?
Yeah, I've been doing this long enough. I've dealt with all different types of scenarios. I think part of my job is to like get partners prepared and make sure they know what to expect
Mm,
and different ranges of performance and customer sentiment and just kind of like everything that could potentially come up. And even then, like we obviously can't cover every little detail and there's always surprises, but we try our best with, initial conversations, resources we provide during onboarding. We use FreeCamp for partner onboarding. There's a ton of like videos and, documentation in there, just kind of like best practices. So we do try to cover everything, but at the end of the day, like we don't really know what's going to happen until we launch. But some
Yeah.
partners I've seen handle it better than others. Like some, like they cannot take criticism well, and they see even constructive criticism as kind of a personal attack, right, on their baby, which I
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
You spend your whole, time, effort, kind of your goal in life is to get this thing built and up to a certain point, and people are
Yeah.
talking about it in a certain way. It's like somebody talking crap on your kid. You feel
Yeah.
attacked, and I get that, but it is important to remember that hopefully it's a small percentage of the overall giant ocean of customers and people that end up seeing you guys and are aware of the tool because of the launch. So
It is that, because I know 100% that I try to be as medium as possible, because you do have to open yourself up for criticism, and the more you get it, the more you have to go into it, if that makes sense. Like the more you get, you're more just like, let's go. Let's take off the PC gloves and let's battle it out. Cuz like let's get to the root of what this is. And that's what I loved, right? You're not going to put your tool out there to, how many people are on your email list? A million?
uh,
220,000,
yeah, I
30,000, 500,000.
as far as active subs, yeah, it's probably in the hundreds of thousands.
Great. So you're not going to put your tool out there and 200,000 people are going to go, I love this. It's great. Everything's amazing. Oh, the team is amazing. No, like, why would you have to be open to criticism. And sometimes it cuts. Like you said, it's like your own kid, like, because it is, right?
Hmm.
Like you birthed this thing, you made this, you care for it, you want to see it grow. And when someone on it, it's like you need to be open to it. But I myself am like, you know what I mean? That's the initial, like,
Like
piece of
the
friction or contention.
Yeah, yeah, and that I do notice like different types of criticism. You have your like constructive, where like that person, like they want the tool to improve, like they want to be able to use
Yeah.
this, and they want certain things to get better. But then, to your
Yeah. Yeah.
point, like I do see people coming in guns blazing without what seems like really no end goal and why they're criticizing, and it's like
Yeah.
weird stuff. And I think some people, they just love the chaos. They want to be heard, in
Yeah.
whatever way that looks like for them. But I would say obviously the constructive stuff is a lot more valuable if you're willing to listen to it.